Good morning, Smarter News. Today we're going to talk about predicting the future, forecasting. If anyone has a crystal ball that I can borrow, I could really use one right now. And I bet we all could over the last year and a half for sure with the uncertainty we've been dealing with. I'm going to do something revolutionary today in this report. We're not going to just focus on the COVID-19 pandemic. We have a big town hall at noon Central Time where we're really going to dig in to what's happening with the new coronavirus. But I do want to talk to you a little bit about one part of this story, and that is some projections and forecasting I'm seeing online about where we are in this recent surge with the Delta variant. I'm seeing more and more doctors, forecasters, health policy officials, or those that like to weigh in on health policy talk about us being near the peak, that we're sort of near the peak of this infection phase. So why are they saying that? What they're looking at is data coming in about positivity rates. That's one part of it. They're weighing a lot of different variables, but this is one thing that they're looking at. So when they start seeing potentially a slowing in infections, they're wondering, are we kind of hitting the top of this wave? But we know that data is coming in from all sorts of places, and sometimes that data isn't timely. So for example, you might have one city, state, look at reporting, and they're trying to report every day, but they got a glut of tests in. And so for a few days, it looks like things slowed down. And then suddenly you get this whole massive reporting of testing that's showing infections at a certain rate again. So I just want to tell you to proceed cautiously with this. When you see the projections, I want you to know that the forecasts are out there, but it's sort of like the weather. You're only as good as the information that you have. Your information is changing all the time. It's reflecting real people, and we know we can be very unpredictable, as my children teach me every single day. I do want to show you one thing though. Let me go ahead and switch this around. This is one model that we've talked about over the last year from the University of Washington. And what you're looking at here is daily infections and testing. And I wanted to take a look at it today because it really exemplifies the point. Here we are today, which looks like we would be at the top of this recent blip of infections. But if I go up here and look at confirmed infections, you can see that the data that they have up until this date is actually from August 2nd. So what they're looking at here is they're taking the data that they have and they're saying, hey, these are the estimated projections that we're having for infections in America. Check this out though. You can actually do this little pull down menu. This graph shows the worst case scenario of this latest surge. So you can see in this case, we're not even near the peak. The peak would be coming in September. So this is just a reason to proceed with caution. This is sort of an interesting website to look at. You can look all over the world at what's happening. Here's a look at hospital resources, for example. And here's also a look at daily deaths. And you can look at the projections, what happens in a worst case scenario, what happens with masking policies. This I'll put underneath the website, on our website underneath this video, so you can play with it and you can sort of see some of these projections. But this is one that's been used quite often. So I just want to flag that for you. Let's move on to talk a little bit about the economy, because we do have news today on some legislation we've been watching for several weeks. You're going to see headlines on this about an infrastructure bill. What's really important to know, anything when it talks about stimulus, sometimes we think about stimulus like somebody else's money. This is your money. I just want to be clear about this. This is your money and how it's actually being spent if you're a U.S. taxpayer, okay? So we're looking at a stimulus bill that looks like it's going to move its way through the Senate today. It has to go to the House of Representatives to officially become law. But the reason why this is getting such attention is a fewfold. One, we're seeing bipartisan support during a highly divisive political time. Infrastructure is always talked about sort of as this golden goose. We're going to get money for roads and bridges and all these things, and we're not going to have potholes anymore. And so this is the thinking that's sort of around an infrastructure bill. Whether or not that's a reality is the next best question. It is talked about as $1 trillion infrastructure bill, but actual new spending, you're looking at about $550 billion. And so just to put this in context, we've already pushed $6 trillion about that into the economy during the COVID-19 pandemic to try to buoy the economy during this time. So related to other stimulus we've seen it is much lower, which is one of the reasons why some say, well, the impact on the economy might be sort of muted. Why are people critical of this bill? What's not good about, functioning roads and bridges? Well, the other side of this is debt. And there is sort of this interesting website that I like to check out every once in a while. It's the US Debt Clock. And what this actually shows you, you go to usdebtclock.org and you'll just pull this up. Let me show you what it looks like with a video so you can, I did record this earlier this morning, so unfortunately we're at more debt at this point, but you can see the tick up. So our national debt, look at how much it is, and then it breaks it down per person or per taxpayer. And so this is the concern about any stimulus, right? There's the argument that you push more money into the economy, you get back the benefit from that because the economy is going to grow and move and we're picking up the pace, which is great for everybody. The flip side of that is that you're adding to the debt if it's not paid for in other ways. And so that's one of the criticisms of this bill. What's interesting is that you have this bill that's moving through the Senate, what could be looked at as an accomplishment for bipartisan support. There's another spending bill right after it, and it doesn't look like Democrats are going to use any Republican support and try to get a $3 trillion plus bill through that would do a lot of other things that aren't focused on infrastructure. So it's just a process to watch. It's not a foregone conclusion, but these two things could be happening on the same day. An effort of bipartisan work and then one where it looks like partisanship is back on center stage. So politics for you. Interesting part of this federal spending too is that sometimes when the federal government passes these big stimulus bills, states pull back some of their funding for some of their projects. Because a lot of the projects, highways and roads and things have to do with their state funding. And so that's another question for economists about what the real benefit sometimes is. But we won't know any of this. We only have the data we have now, and we'll see in future years, really over the course of a decade, whether or not this looks to benefit the economy or whether or not we're seeing better, safer roads and bridges. Okay, I'm going to talk about the next story. And this sort of ties to infrastructure because a lot of federal spending is going for public transportation. And one of the areas you're seeing that in public transportation is in New York City, the largest American city. New York State is always very high profile. It's a very high profile governor position. And as you know, there's been a lot of controversy about New York's governor, Andrew Cuomo. Just a little backstory. You had this big investigation by the Attorney General in New York, a civil investigation looking at claims of sexual harassment, sexual assault that the Attorney General said was legitimate. These were legitimate claims, but that wasn't a criminal investigation. What we're seeing now is that report being used by at least 4 district attorneys that are looking to investigate potential criminal charges against the governor. And despite all these questions swirling about his conduct, he is completely denying these allegations and continues to do so. So you should know the two sides. What's notable about this and what I was thinking about why I was like, we really need to flag this story. I think it's very easy to become desensitized. How many news stories have we covered about this issue over the years for many people in power? What makes this different is how recent these allegations are. How recent the allegations are and how many different places legally this is going. So you have civil cases, you have criminal cases that are being explored right now. You also have politicians of the same party call for the resignation of the governor. So this does look different than other, it's hard to compare all these. It's also depressing to do that, so let's not do that. But this is why this particular situation for the New York governor is different. You have very recent allegations. You have women coming forward, they're on camera now, and these allegations look like they're causing all this ripple effect. By the way, politics doesn't move fast, as you know, and any sort of impeachment proceedings could be weeks or months away. So we could be in this for a while. Another reason why I wanted to mention this to you. So here's my question. If you had a crystal ball and you could find the really understand the future for any of these news stories that we're looking at, any of them, what's the one question you would ask so that you can get the answer? What would you really want to know at this point? I'm curious what you think. I have a prediction that's actually going to come true. We have a town hall with Dr. Rutland, noon Central Time. He is fantastic about taking all your questions about COVID-19. So go ahead and send those in. I'm going to use them and I'm going to use them live. I'm going to post the videos. You're going to see it if you miss it. I know a lot of you are really busy, so don't worry about that. And hopefully this is the first of many. So we'll see you there. All of this and so much more on smarternews.com. Have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you soon.